Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today, we are thinking about having a personal brand with Lauren. Yes, this is the topic of the day so that we can continue on thinking. So, thank you so much, Lauren, for coming on my show and sharing your time and perspective with me and everyone else so that we can continue on thinking. So, let's go ahead and dive right in. Why is it important for us to think about having a personal brand?
Well, thank you, first of all, for having me. So happy to be here. I believe that the importance of a personal brand is very distinctive to each person. So I wouldn't do a sweeping statement that everyone should consider it. It would only make sense for those that it adds value to your business offering. So
I like
if
that.
you, for right now, the people that I'm working with, their offering is them. So they're either a coach or a speaker or an author or a podcaster. And so what they're offering is some version of them and their expertise. So it makes sense for them to have a personal brand. The entrepreneurs that I work with, if their personal story, if their expertise, if even just the enthusiasm they have for the business that they're running would lend itself and help leverage their business, then absolutely let's get out there because you are a commodity. You are a person, your personal brand is a business lever that you can be pulling for your business. But when it's used just for marketing purposes, it can come off kind of inauthentic. And so authenticity is key in this. And so it needs to make sense. It doesn't need to be forced. So I
Yeah.
think, depending on what service you're in and the gifts that you have to give back to the world and how you want to do that, everybody has a unique positioning as to how they'll come to the market with their personal brand.
Yeah, I like that. I like the fact that you said it depends on how much value do you want to bring out. You know what I mean? And I think that is very key element to what people really need to think about is like, what do you value? How can you bring it out? Well, how can you show the world what you value? You know what I mean? And I think when we put that into businesses, into life coaches, into authors, or, you know what I mean, podcasters, it really does make sense because you want to be authentic. You know what I mean? You don't want to have this image or this persona that doesn't actually match the same person that you are because people are going to pick up on that real quick. You know what I mean? No, people are not dumb, despite the fact that people like to play dumb. They can see straight through the authenticity that's actually being projected. So, for you personally, when did you realize that you needed to reamp your own personal brand?
Well, I have spent the last 25 years of my career history. I got out of school at the University of Texas with an advertising degree. So I've been in the advertising industry space as a
Okay.
creative for a very long time.
Okay.
I started at one of the biggest ad agencies here in Austin, Texas. And then from there, my path was kind of scripted by some divine assignment, as well as the desire that I had to try out every different modality there was to helping somebody sell something creatively. So
Oh,
whether it was inside an advertising agency, and then I left and I really became obsessed with the entrepreneurial world and helping founders with their businesses, but then also at the same time wanting to run my own businesses as well. And so I
mm,
tinkered with owning my own businesses, an adventure company for kids. I would then go and work directly for founders. And then it was just kind of, and then I became a mom. And then motherhood
mm,
definitely was a big chunk of time that I reprioritized my career goals. And I always put
yeah.
my boys first. And so what I did during that time was, again, very entrepreneurial, but also just kind of opportunities too. I would align
Mm,
myself with the opportunities that really aligned with what I wanted to do with my own gifts and how I wanted to give them
mm.
back. And so when I was making this shift, just last year, my birthday was in October. I just celebrated my 49th birthday. I
Nice.
was like, can you pivot at this stage, 25 years into your career history and later in life, as far as like being in your late 40s? And I just got very introspective last year and took a pause with my retainer clients that I had. I had some personal stuff with my parents. I had taken on caregiving role with them. And so my oldest son had just gone off to college. And so it was this first time that I felt like I could kind of invest in me. And
Yeah.
so I ended up joining a bunch of professional development mentorships and masterminds and communities and found myself in a personal branding community trying to work on my own personal brand. But what I ended up finding was that the people that were in there were actually founders themselves But while they might not have had a brick and mortar business, some were entrepreneurs. Most of them are selling themselves as a service. I realized that just like products and services that I had been branding and advertising for so many years, they were a person. And so I thought, why could I not apply the same learnings and the same creativity that I've been doing for brands all this time to them? And so
Yeah.
when I saw them go to market with their brand assets and their websites, I felt like they didn't really look like a brand, through my opinion. And
Yeah.
so I just started thinking about like the idea of, could we be branding personal
Hmm.
brands and like put the branding in that and put the person in the personal brand by making these very unique and very distinctive, which is everything I was ever taught in advertising school. And the gifts that I would give back to my clients was looking at what I call the unicorn factor. I would do that with products and services, and now I'm doing it with people to really extrapolate, what is it about you that makes you so unique, so that
Mm.
someone would want to hire you as a coach. Just like, what makes
Mm.
your ice cream so special that they would want to pick your ice cream over another one? Sometimes that's packaging. Ben and Jerry's has different packaging than Haagen-Dazs. So when it comes to a personal brand, your packaging is not only your aesthetic, but it's your voice, it's your message. But for me in the brand asset space, it's, how is your copy written?
Yeah.
Do you have logos that are unique to you? Do you have iconography that represents who you are and what you offer? And then your digital storefront of your website is probably the biggest piece that I obsess over, because I look at them as pieces of art, and that they completely reflect the person that you are engaging with as a customer. And so this shift just really happened this over the summer, and I started taking on clients, and I've just started launching their brands. And the best thing I keep hearing from all of them is they send me text messages, like screenshots from their friends or clients, are like, this is so you. And so I love that so much, because it's just, that's the art form that I love giving back. And it just makes me so happy to have branding as a vehicle to basically help people go live their dreams and feel confident they can go sell themselves and their services.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you think of those logos and those brands from these big corporations, they're universal. You know what I mean? They speak volumes without actually having to say words in a specific language. So when you say it in the form that you did, it makes sense, because when you're able to have a logo or a brand or an image of a website storefront, it resonates with people. You know what I mean? They're able to associate that with all that you are. So it's nice how you have that creative eye initially coming into college and kind of coming out of college in your advertising and marketing field, and you just instinctively know how to see the good in a situation, or you are instinctively know how to see how to be more creative. And there's always this constructive criticism I see, but it's always good. You know what I mean? You find the good in others that sometimes we fail to see in ourselves. And I think more people need to acknowledge that. Like sometimes we need to allow other people in our space and allow them to see what we don't and necessarily see, because we may be blinded from certain aspects. You know what I mean? And someone in your field, it makes sense why you're doing what you're doing, because I mean, for you to do anything else seems wrong. It
I
seems
know, right?
wrong. So why go out and share this with the world? You could just be helping your local area. You can be, just giving this information just to the people around you in your community. Why share this with the rest of the world and speak up about this so that they can think about this?
I think for me, when I was really trying to think about the pivot that I was going to be making, and I had a couple of retainer clients, I just had ongoing maintenance work and different like events we would do or marketing campaigns and things like that. I did feel this little pit in my stomach, I guess, that I wasn't making enough impact. And I was trying to figure out, how could I make more impact? How could I
Yeah.
affect more people? And so it took a full year of really trying to figure out what I was going to offer so that I could impact more people. So now the reason I'm out here now talking about it is because I want more people to know that their voice matters, that they're doing matters, and that there are ways to get out there now. And then the way the marketing field, or the way the digital marketing field has democratized the ability to be able to get out there and spread your voice and spread your message, but via podcasts and YouTube and social media, that there's an opportunity for everyone to not ever feel trapped. I think I've also
Yeah.
had this since I was a little girl. I watched my parents have jobs, but I always felt like my observation of a career and what people did with their their most of their hours of the day was so like beholden to a job so they could make money. And so it just always get this feeling that people kind of felt trapped, and that their true skill set and the gifts that they were given, a lot of people get them realized, but a lot of people don't. And so
Yeah.
that kind of dissatisfaction is what I want to also help people realize, that they have something to offer. And there's so many formats now to which you can offer that, and ways of making creating a business model for yourself. Doesn't mean your full-time job and the way you have a paycheck and a stable income isn't necessary and isn't great too. But I think now just being able to show others how I have been able to package up these humans, these experts and these thought leaders, and take them to market as a business. Hopefully,
Yeah.
the more I create, just shows more people that they have an opportunity to do the same thing.
Yeah, I love that. I love that because if once we realize that we have those unique skill sets and this uniqueness that makes us valuable in this world, then we start to realize, you know what, I need to do something about it. You know what I mean? We start to feel empowered because you're absolutely right. So many people forget the fact that we are born with natural gifts and abilities that somebody else may not have, but somebody else may need, or somebody may be able to utilize that gift in some way, but we diminish it, like you said, by going into this rat race of this world of just working this job and just only focusing on that, so that by the time you're going home, you are drained and done and just ready to go to sleep and start all over again, never actually living a fulfilling life, never actually grasping and taking the day as is and really taking advantage of it. And I think when you have this personal brand and you have something of value to share, you really are able to let people know this is what I can bring to the table. If it works for you, great. And if it doesn't, it's okay. Maybe it'll work for somebody else. And I think when we start to realize that we all have that, then we won't feel so fearful of rejection. We won't feel so timid from going out there in the world and not being accepted or not thinking that somebody will have the same perspective as you, you know. So what do you say to those people who are just stepping out into that unknown and stepping out into their true selves?
Well, I think one thing we try to one thing we do to ourselves is we figure out, like, what do we have to offer? Like, what is our
Yeah.
thing? What is the thing that we're good at? And we might have an answer to that. We might not. But what I've been taught is we really should be starting with the who. Who
Mm,
do I want to serve? Who is the
yeah.
person that I can transform in some way or help in some way? And then
Yeah.
you can kind of back things out from there and see, like, well, what service is it that they need, or what is it that I can provide them? And so I think when you first start thinking about that, if you are wanting to step out, kind of start with, who are the people that make you so happy that you would light up every day? Or the person
Mm,
that, if they were your client or your customer and they were to like text you in the middle of the night, you would be so excited to help them, not annoyed.
yeah.
So it's like, just who are the people that, and then so it's hard nowadays too, because there's so much like self-care language that goes on about taking care of ourselves and thinking of ourselves. And we
Yeah.
do need to do that. But I think if you think about it in service of others, like, I'm taking care of myself in service of others, the way they say, mom should put the oxygen mask on first so that they can then be there for their kids.
Yeah.
Um, I think starting with your who is kind of the first way of stepping out. And two, they're dipping your toe in the water and kind of beta testing ideas as to, like, what would my service be? Because in the spring, for me, even, I thought I was going to have a digital community. I was like, oh, I'll be a community leader, and I had named it, and I'd gotten a bunch of people, and I'd paid for a platform, and I started it, but it
Yeah.
wasn't resonating. The one-on-ones that the women were wanting to do with me seemed to be even more successful, and I was like, yeah, maybe this isn't for me. So I tried something, and it didn't work, and there are some investment costs that go with that. So I think making sure you have a little bit of some money or resources to explore what you might be stepping out to do is good. If you are in a full-time job, definitely try to do this on the side as much as you can while you're figuring it out. But there's all kinds of resources, and I offer free dream catcher calls. So basically, I call it a dream catcher, like the dream catchers you hang in the window, which I know traditionally are like supposed to filter out bad juju and bad energy. But I also am like, I'll do that. We'll get all those negative limiting beliefs out on our call, but but also I want to kind of catch the dreams you have for yourself. So I can hopefully pull it together in a way that helps you see, like, oh, okay, I see now how I could offer this. And I had a client right now that we actually pulled back her branding into a soft launch versus the entire package, because once she saw it, like the full website and all the offerings and everything we were going to be selling, she's like, I don't know if I'm ready yet, because it was
Yeah.
legit. It was like you finally
Yeah.
see it. You're like, I don't know if I'm ready to do this. And so we're like, let's just back it out a little bit and just do kind of a soft launch and just gather interest for now. So there's definitely ways you can kind of start figuring out like who wants this service and what is it that I want to do. So
Yeah.
that's something I can help people visualize as well.
I like that. I like the dream call aspect because sometimes it's that little oomph that we all need. You know what I mean? When you said that you take away the doubts, you take away the distractions, and you gather up the dream. Oh my goodness. I thought of my mom because sometimes my mom, she just gets stuck into doubt, and I'm always like trying to catch her and bring her back together. Like, okay, Ma, I understand that. That's valid. Those are all valid points. However, now let's flip it on the other side and let's gather it all together, like you said. So it's like it's nice to see how real that is. You know what I mean? I'm not the only one that does that, but it's like it's nice that that's what your goal is, to help people, because so many people need that little oomph. You know what I mean? That little just that nudge. Because my boys are toddlers right now, and sometimes they fall, and sometimes they're about to fall, and I'm just there to catch them real quick, and I'm like, oomph, there you go, keep going, and they're just going on their way. And it's like sometimes we need that in life, in adulthood. You know what I mean? To just have somebody there to just be like, you got this, you got this. And if it's a simple phone call, oh, how can you not just do it? Just a simple phone call. You could be driving in the car, breaking down, about to go in tears, call Lauren up and be like, Lauren, I'm fully distracted and I'm ready to catch my dreams. You know what I mean? Something so simple like that. That is something beautiful to give to the world. Thank you. And I know time is catching up to us. So, what can be some lasting words of wisdom that you can leave us off with? Even though, let's be honest, so much of this conversation have been filled with so many great points. But what can be some lasting words you can give us?
Well, my brand icon is a unicorn, and I know we touched on it a little bit, but that is truly how I see the world. Ever since I was a little girl, I just always saw the sea of horses, and I just either saw a person that was a unicorn, or I wanted to be the unicorn. I always wanted to do something a little bit differently. I didn't stray so far off the beaten path, but I think that there like I said, everybody has what I call their unicorn factor. And so what is that about you that only you can own? And
Yeah.
in whether or not it's like, well, I'm doing the same thing. Like Mitzi has a podcast. I have a podcast too. But there's something about Mitzi that's different than you as far as how you're going to deliver that podcast, and really lean into that and really own it. Because I think at the same time, it gives you that confidence. And something I say too is like, I create one of a kind personal brands for one of a kind individuals, because that's either what I can see in you, or I know we all uniquely possess. And it's going to be the differentiator in the world of AI too, for how we can stand out and be unique humans on our own, because we got to start competing with a lot of artificial intelligence coming up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think just a lot of this is being able to, it's a self-discovery tour as well of yourself, but it's learning to love yourself and all of the things that make you you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think once we start to acknowledge the fact that we're whole individuals and we're perfect as we are, and yes, there's always time to tune up and make adjustments, but it doesn't mean that you're broken. It doesn't mean that you're faulty. It doesn't mean that you're useless. You know what I mean? Just find your place and you'll be very useful. So I think everything that you said today gives me a lot to think about along with the rest of the world, because let's be honest, having that moment of just stepping into all that you are is what we really want. And when you're able to use that and put all that you are in a brand, it just makes sense. You know what I mean? Because you're putting you in a space that you physically can't be in, but people can recognize that's still who you are. And that's what we all need, especially when you're trying to have that value as an entrepreneur. And nowadays, where so many entrepreneurs are out there. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you guys want to check out Lauren, because you were able to resonate with what we were speaking about today, please check her out. I have her lovely photo on my website and access to her website right under, so that you can continue on thinking. So with that being said, bye.